Hi.
don't know what was just happening with technology. My computer is having a moment. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Shockingly Delightful. Technology is doing what it does today.
And yes, and some of what we'll talk about today
Whew.
of how we've learned how to cope with things like that. I
Yeah.
am Michelle with Moksha Grace Coaching, and this is Krista Barone from Wicked Wisdom Consulting, and she's dealing with some technical issues and making sure that everything is connected so everyone can join us as we are going live, and we'll just kind of hang out a little bit while we're waiting for some people to join us. We are in lovely South Florida, and what that means is that we have had all kinds of weird weather, flooding, catfish in the street, uh, koi fish swimming in the backyard. All kinds of crazy things always seem to happen around Tropicountry Acre, which is what we call our farm. Would you call it a farm, an urban farm, a hobby farm?
I'm just going to, whatever happens with technology is going to happen. I am back in the conversation. I have been calling it Hobby Farm. If anyone wants to see what the farm looks like, you can go to Instagram and Facebook and go to Tropicountry Acre. I'll pop that in the caption. I would call it a hobby farm because we don't. What's the distinction? I looked it up a few weeks ago. We're not really selling, like, we're not raising the animals for the sole purpose of selling their whatever they produce,
Right.
you know.
Which was our original thought.
That was our original thought, but sometimes the cookie does not crumble the way that you think it's going to.
Well, and a big part of that was we became attached.
Yeah. So the thing about, okay, well, let's back up a little bit. So on our hobby farm, we have goats, chickens, snake, a couple of birds, a parrot and a cockatiel, a tortoise, dogs, cats. I think that's everybody. And when we got the goats, we were under the impression that we would milk them, have milk and cheese, and the
So,
chickens we would get eggs from, the goats we would, the goat milk, soap, all sorts of things. But lesson number one from the farm, things don't always work out the way you think they're going to. And when our girls got pregnant, the both of them had udder issues, and so that's udder as in their udders that carry milk,
not
not udder,
other.
or not utter like this is utter chaos. And so it would not have been in our girls' best interest to milk them, because it wouldn't have been health wise in their best interest. It was not going to be possible. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so that went out the window. And in order to have a constant supply of milk, that means that you have to constantly keep the girls pregnant and constantly, you give them a little bit of a break, but you pretty much is constantly reproducing. And if that happens, then you need to either have a lot of land that all little babies can live on, or you need to sell those babies. And as a goat doula 3 times, it is very
Yes.
hard to help a goat give birth and then just not have those babies anymore.
A lot of people can do that, but
Yes,
as
and
first time,
so much respect and admiration for the people who
yeah,
can, because I mean that's what keeps, new farms starting and starts people on their journey, but it was just not going to be something that was possible for us. And
me.
lesson number 2, knowing your boundaries.
Well, and well, one, don't look them in their beautiful blue
Oh,
eyes,
yeah.
and also, if you are going to utilize the animals for anything, whether you're going to sell them or sometimes people
Harvest them
use
would be the word.
harvest them, don't name them.
Listen, there's some people that do. There's some people that do, and I will tell
Yes.
you, you know, we won't go into that part of the conversation. That's not what today's about.
No.
But the chickens, we do get a ton of eggs from. We're very blessed in that respect. They get fed very high quality organic food, and they have very beautiful eggs with very beautiful egg yolks, and they're very nutritious and delicious. And the cool thing, if you're not familiar with farm fresh eggs, is farm fresh eggs, the girls actually lay them with a protective coating on the outside. So you actually, it's better to leave them on the counter unwashed. But you can leave them on the counter up to 3 months, depending on your environment. That may change. It may be less or more, depending on how wet or dry your area is. But yeah, so that's been a really fun thing to experiment with too. And
Well,
to answer, well, go ahead.
I was going to say, and so the real world lesson from that
Mm-hmm.
is energetically,
Mm-hmm.
if you seal off your energy, you can protect yourself, not so that the good stuff can't come through, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's how baby chicks can, they have to breathe. So the seal
Mm-hmm.
allows what they need in, the nutrients, but it doesn't allow the bad stuff through. And
Mm-hmm.
so energetically, we can also do the same by putting a seal, hot,
Energetic seal.
an energetic seal around ourselves so that only benevolence, positive energy, positive thoughts, feelings can come through. And so, yeah, follow nature's example because nature knows what it's doing. And back in the day, there was that wonderful commercial for margarine. Nobody can fool mother nature, and then there was lightning and thunder that would strike. It was a very cool commercial. But
That
yeah.
sounds very interesting. Now, I do want to mention something because usually this is something anyone who is getting fresh eggs from us for the first time, they always ask, "Wait, so does this mean, leaving these eggs on the counter, a chick could hatch from them?" Chicks are not going to hatch. Chicks, in order for chicks to develop, it requires a very specific temperature and for that temperature to remain consistent. So while yes, if you are getting eggs from a farm that also has roosters, yes, technically those eggs are fertilized and yes, could turn into chicks. It requires a very specific environment for that to happen. So no, you're not going to have chicks that just you open the carton one day and there's chicks in the egg container. It doesn't work like that, even more so when they're in the refrigerator. And the ones that you get from the store, those have been pressure washed and bleached, so nothing's coming from those. And usually there aren't roosters at those facilities, so you're
Yeah.
good there. But just a little farm fun fact for you.
Well, and
From the farm.
speaking of roosters, I'd like to talk about a really big myth. Roosters do not always crow, only in the morning.
Yeah.
Huge myth. Wrong. They crow all the time. And the real world lesson to this is uh, look at your limiting beliefs, the things that you've been told for years, or the stories that people put in movies and the scenes. Well, Pauly Shore throwing his boot at a rooster, that was one of my most favorite. Not that he threw the boot at the rooster, but it's one of my most favorite movies.
Honestly, though, if you're a fellow farm owner or animal owner,
Sometimes you want to throw a boot at a rooster,
and sometimes you do, and that's okay.
and you miss the rooster.
As
You
long
don't
as you
hit
you
the
don't
rooster.
actually hit it. You throw it by it, just
By
to
it, near
make
it.
you feel better.
Yeah, and you're like, what are you screaming at? I have been out in the middle of the night at 3 in the morning, yes, in a nightgown, with a flashlight because the roosters are crowing at 3 in the morning, and I'm trying to figure out what it is that they're crowing at, and I have yet to see
Anything.
anything. So don't cry wolf. That would be another life lesson from that one, right? Don't just crow to crow. uh, and I guess the other life lesson could be the loudest crow does get attention, because when they do crow, I do go out and give them attention, which could also go to the parrot too, because when the parrot squawks loud enough, I give it attention too.
So I think what we need to do right now is take a little note from Moment of Presence and take a deep breath, because I feel like this episode has started off very chaotically and we've not made a single good point so far. So why don't we both take a second, channeling Moment of Presence, Michelle's show on Thursdays at 12 p.m. In breath. And out. Because this is not at all what we had planned for today's episode.
It isn't?
I mean, it is, but not at the rapid fire pace that we're at.
Well, that it is farm life.
True. Farm life is very chaotic. For those of you who are tuning in, comment your name in the chat so we can see who is here and who's joining us. And if you have any farm stories, please feel free to share them. We'd love to hear about your farm stories as well.
Or questions.
Or questions. Yeah, feel free to put in your questions.
And listen, we are not perfect.
No.
We did not plan to ever have a farm. Like, that was not something we thought about.
No, it's something that I thought about. Honestly, personally, I think I manifested the farm life because a friend of mine in middle school had horses, and I thought it was really, really cool that she had to wake up every morning and go take care of the horses before school. So I'm going to take I'll call it blame, for manifesting farm life. So that's my B. But farm life is a blessing, and there really is, truly, we've sort of been joking, but there really are some tremendous lessons and things that you learn along the way in farming that really shape and change your perspective as you go through life. And we are seriously going to be talking about some of those. Some of the things we've talked about so far have been sort of half-heartedly joking, but yeah, there definitely are some really big lessons, and truly, a lot of farming, probably like half the time, half of farming is welcoming new life in. And that in and of itself is such a blessing to witness, and comes with its own lessons and challenges and all of that.
Baby chicks are so cute.
Baby anything is cute, let's be honest.
They're just so cute. And they're beep, 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 beep. They're little
I can't hear them, but you can hear that.
I can hear them. And here's the thing, and this is one of those things where it's a life lesson from the farm, and also from Jurassic Park. Life will find a way. Yeah. So we collect eggs every day. We collect them in the morning. We collect them at night. We collect our eggs. There are times where our hens will lay eggs and sit on a nest that
particularly the bantams.
We don't know that they're doing that. And all of a sudden, I will be giving hay to the goats or what have you. This is what happened the last time. And I heard these little peep, peep, peep sounds, not coming from the chicken area. And I looked and looked and finally found our young lady, our young mom, that was trying to hide away her children. And I was worried that they were going to get trampled on by the goats. And so I had to, move them.
To the nursery.
Yes, to the nursery. We do have a nursery area for our chicks. We have like a little, what would you call it? Not a quarantine, or a little hospital in case of anything, because there's always something that happens, and you have to give some chickens some extra love.
So lesson number 1 is life will find a way. Life always finds a way. And life will throw you unexpected blessings that maybe don't look like blessings at first. And then you realize, wow, this really is a blessing. Now, on the other hand, life will sometimes throw you shocking events. With that same clutch of chicks that was born, there was a rooster who, before we could move them to their nursery, the rooster decided, well, this looks like a tasty meal. And so, unfortunately, one of the chicks was lost. So life throws you shocking events sometimes, and you can dwell on them. Or you can go, you know what? I have all these other blessings that I need to take care of and acknowledge and appreciate. I'm going to focus on that, and I can handle this other issue when time permits me to, and when I'm able to. Yes. And so you can look past the bad and get to the good.
Yes. I was actually listening to Abraham Hicks the other day, and she was talking about how Esther had chickens,
Mm-hmm.
and a dog got into the chicken coop. And once she calmed down, you know, she,
Esther or the dog?
Esther,
Mm.
because she was not happy. And then Abraham could come through. And if you don't know who Abraham Hicks and Esther is, that's probably a different conversation. Uh, but the story is that once she was calmed down, she got the message of focus on the chickens that are here and that are alive, and you can't change what's already happened. And so focus on the ones that are here and that need you. And so, life lesson from a farm, you have to focus on what's in front of you and what
So
needs you.
basically, you're telling me that I just channeled the same message as Abraham Hicks.
Yes.
Sweet.
Yes,
I'll be
absolutely.
here all day, folks.
Yeah. And also with the chickens, I kind of wrote down some notes. I wanted to go through the life lesson of the pecking order,
Mm.
because the pecking order has to do with the chickens, but it also has to do with life, uh, from school, right? Kids, there's a pecking order. People have groups and cliques, and so do chickens. So do the chickens.
True.
And if you sit back and you watch and you don't interact, but you just sit and you watch, you can see who's more in control, who is the rooster's favorites, what who's the Karen of the group. Excuse me if your name is Karen, but you know what I mean. Who's the troublemaker, who's the bully. You can absolutely see it. And every time, which was so interesting as we started to, continue our farming and learning, is every time a chicken comes or goes, a new pecking order has to be reestablished
Right. And
every.
that's even just if a chicken has to be treated for something. So we bring her to like our kind of treatment area, or she, gets out of the coop for a few hours. All of that affects the pecking order. And I want to mention too, what's really interesting with chickens is it's not necessarily who you think is top dog, because very often, the chicken at the top of the pecking order is the smallest, the skinniest, the
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what like the what you would think would be the bottom of the pecking order. She's actually at the top.
Yeah.
And you'd think the roosters would be at the top of the pecking order. They're not. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, but the girls will keep the roosters in line.
Mm-hmm. And the roosters will keep the hawks in line.
Mm-hmm. As much as they can.
Yeah,
The
as much
hawks
as
don't really bother our girls because they're larger girls. We've been very lucky. There's also not a lot of swooping room, so that it's hard for them to be able to do any damage. But one of the other things that I wanted to touch on is actually it happened yesterday, and that's part of why I was like, yes, we have to talk about this tomorrow. Is so when we have chicken feed delivered, and the chicken feed typically comes in either 25 or 35-pound bags or more, depending on what food you order. The ones we get come in 35-pound bags. Well, we had 6 35-pound bags delivered yesterday. It's typically part of my duty to move the chicken feed most of the time. Sometimes someone will help out, whatever. But most of the time, I take care of that. Now, I know you can't tell from behind the computer screen, but I'm 4'10", and I weigh a whopping 90 pounds. Now, if we do the math, 6 35-pound bags is 210 pounds of chicken feed.
Mm-hmm.
So yesterday, I'm, putting the bags of feed on a tree cart. It's the easiest way to move it. And along my path is a downhill area.
Oh no.
And I forgot that there was a little landscape light in my path. And so when I was going downhill, I was like, oh crap, this light's here. So I stopped. And I spent probably 5 minutes trying to push this tree cart.
Oh
That's
geez.
210 pounds plus the weight of the tree cart uphill. It didn't have to be much. It was just trying to do a
Yeah.
foot. And I could not do it. For the life of me, I just did not have the body weight and power to be able to move it. And so I had to ask for help. I did not want to have to. I didn't want to have to bother anybody. But I had to ask for help because it was just not going. It was either going to be I sat there, I injured myself, or I broke the light, and I didn't want to do any of those things. So I asked for help.
Yeah.
Not only did I get the help, but this person also helped me bring the chicken feed all the way to where I needed it to go, and then I loaded it into our feed trailer. The lesson there is ask for help. Get over your ego, move past it, get rid of it,
Mm-hmm.
ask for help when you need it. Because if I had gotten injured, that would have affected a lot more than just those bags of feed.
Right.
Because I also almost slipped a few times, which really would have stunk because I possibly could have knocked my teeth out, which would have been bad too.
Well, and the tree cart could have fallen on top of you.
Now that wouldn't have been a problem.
Well, I mean,
not with the way I'd move it, but anyway. But we have a big problem as humans with not asking for help.
Yeah.
And we put ourselves in sometimes really bad situations just
Mhm.
simply because we don't want to have to deal with the embarrassment or the hit to our pride or our ego or whatever it is, and simply asking someone for help, who, by the way, most of the time would love nothing more than to be able to help you.
Yes, and it's also giving someone else an opportunity to step up and to help. And
Mhm.
so it's a give and a receive.
Yeah.
And if you don't ask for help, you're taking away that opportunity for somebody to come to your aid, to
Mhm.
be there for you.
Mhm.
Um, and that, when you think about it, that's not nice. Like, it's just not nice. You want to be able to help, just like you needed someone to help you. You also want to help other people.
Mhm.
And it is the universal law of reciprocity.
Yeah.
And it
Well,
is.
they've also done, I don't know if it was a study or a simulation or what it was, but if you put 100 people who are only focused on themselves and are full of ego on an island, and then on a separate island, you put 100 people who are devoted to helping others and loving each other. The people on the island where they're loving each other are going to be alive in 50 years. The people who are only out to help themselves are going to be dead within a week.
Yeah.
Because humans rely on each other. The only way we've been successful throughout history is by relying on each other. So do we really want to be, denying our most primal instincts as humans?
And this is a good point. If we and this isn't a let's go back and regret or anything like that. However, if you have children and you're thinking about starting a small farm or getting a animal or something, it has helped with routine.
Mm-hmm.
You can't not get up and feed the animals because they can't do it themselves. So it helps with structure, it helps with responsibility, it helps with routine, it
Mm-hmm.
helps with being out in nature. There are times where I just need to be out in the goat yard raking hay. And it has been some of my most calming moments of active meditation, is what I call it. Whether I'm listening to something and just completely getting in the groove, it's kind of like when they always show, those. What are the sand and the Asian? They sell them in like in Epcot.
Is it like a sand farm?
Not the same, I guess, but you rake in the sand and you can make the circles, and it's just very calming. And so it's the same type of thing
Zen
when you.
garden?
Yes, yeah, Zen garden. Not that the goats are a Zen garden. However, there's so much to do that you get so wrapped up into that it's a vacation
Mm-hmm.
from everything else that's happening in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that moment, you're only focused on what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
and having a little fun too. Our
Mm-hmm.
goats have a goat swing, like go out there. Well, it needs to be rebuilt, but I can't believe we've almost been here 10 years.
Yeah, I know. I do want to touch on something though very important. Yes, having animals can teach routine and help with all of those things, but one of the other big things that we've learned is when you're able to do the research you need to do. Admittedly, when we first got goats, when we first got chickens, when we first got all of these different animals, we were super excited about the idea of it. They were so cute. We were excited about having babies. There's a lot of things that we could have been better prepared for, so that instead of having to figure it out in the moment, we would have been aware of it ahead of time.
Yeah.
And so on our, and I'll pop it up again in case anyone wants to check it out. I was just having a conversation with someone on our Tropic Country Acre account on Instagram, where we post videos and pictures and stuff of the animals, cute stuff, funny stuff. But someone was saying, "Oh my God, I really want to go. Talk me out of it." I will absolutely talk you out of it, because having something like a goat is not for the faint of heart. They're obnoxious sometimes, and they're very playful, mischievous, deviant. Um, they're never malicious. Well, I'm assuming some can be, but ours, they're never malicious, but they are not for the faint of heart. There is a phrase that dear friends of us told us, actually the ones who we adopted our first goat from. One of the very first things they told us about goats, which we probably should have taken a little bit more heed to, was keep your head on a swivel.
Head on a swivel.
Head on a swivel. And what that means, and that's become a daily saying in our house, if someone's going out, if someone's doing anything, head on a swivel. What that means is you always need to be aware of your surroundings. You need to be able to really understand the body language of the animals. And this goes for people too, being out and about, be aware of
Yes.
your surroundings, be aware of the body language of the people around you. And in the goat sense, it's not because they mean you any harm, but for example, they have horns on their head. They don't, those horns are for protection if a predator were to be in the area, or for playing, things like that. But sometimes they don't realize what their horns are capable of. Knucklehead, my sweet darling little boy, accidentally one day basically body slammed me because of his horns, because he did. And what's great about the video that I love, because yes, it was caught on security cameras, is that you can literally see the confusion from him, because he genuinely didn't mean to do it.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other lesson in and of itself, of when something happens that involves another person, another animal, another being, whatever it is, consider the intentions behind it.
Right.
If someone didn't mean harm, it doesn't mean that they're off the hook, but it means that you can look at the situation from a different perspective.
Right.
It means that you can let go of any ill will that you start to harbor, because there was not malintent when the situation happened. And that's the perfect example of that. He didn't mean to injure me.
Right.
But he did. And so that was a lesson also for me in the moment of, I wasn't paying attention to my surroundings. My head was not on a swivel. I knew better than to not be paying attention to him, because I know his attitude, and I knew his body language. I remember saying to him, "Don't start with me today."
Mm-hmm.
So I knew better, and I let my guard down. That's on me.
Yeah.
I take responsibility for that, which is a whole other lesson in radical responsibility. See, people, so the farm world is just lesson after lesson after. There is a lesson in literally everything you do as a animal owner.
And as you're talking about Knucklehead, not just body slamming you, but throwing you across the air. Which there's
It
video.
wasn't across the yard. He's not a Tyrannosaurus.
I didn't say yard. I said air. He threw you
He
in
did
the air.
not throw. No,
Well,
it was a classic. Just
listen, check
horn got
tape.
caught on my leg.
Check
I'll be
tape.
posting the video on Tropic Country Acre in a few minutes, so you can check it out there.
But here's the thing that I learned that we've learned about goats, which is it's quite interesting. when they test you, when they're trying to play
Mhm.
with you to see how far they can get and if they can dominate you, you are to take them and wrestle them to the ground and hold them down with their head touching the ground until you hear them basically exhale, like do that, like, okay, uncle, I give up.
Stop tapping the table.
Sorry. So I've had to do that
Mhm.
several times, and
Mhm.
it one time, and it ripped my wedding band
Mhm.
actually off my finger one time because I had him held to the ground. And if you give up and you let him up in that moment, then he knows he's best you, and
Mhm.
then he's alpha and you're not. So it's really super important that if you're going to do it, you're going to be committed.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take that and say that goes back to doing the work on yourself and not allowing your ego or your shadow aspects of you take
Mhm.
control over you. You
Mhm.
need to wrestle that shit to the ground and hold them until they breathe out. Okay.
Yeah.
And exhale and say, Uncle, I get it.
What's the uncle thing?
Okay. So in wrestling, at least, I don't know, when I was a kid, in wrestling or when you were play fighting, when you were to the point where you were ready to give up, like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. It's like your safe word, uncle. And so that meant like I give up. So calling uncle. But I guess we could say safe word for those that have watched other movies, but you know.
I'm just gonna leave that where it is. Anyway, it's so funny when you were saying that, just thinking more about Knucklehead. Knucklehead is probably our biggest lesson giver of all the goats. And it actually made me think of our experience in trying to find a good vet. Technically goats would be considered an exotic animal.
Right.
And most exotic vets would treat small things like a hamster, a snake, a reptile, a bird, whatever. So to find a good goat vet proved to be very difficult for many years. And when we had to have some neutering done, we had a gentleman out who was considered a farm vet, not a pet vet. And so his method of doing things was very, I'll use the word archaic.
Trigger
I'm not
alert
gonna,
just for
no, I'm
anybody.
not going into any details with it. I'm just going to leave it at that. But my point with that there and the lesson is be careful who you hire to help you with anything.
Right.
Do your research, do your due
Hmm.
diligence, and look into that person. And more importantly, if something feels off about the situation, see if you can identify what it is, but don't just keep pushing forward if something feels wrong.
Right.
That goes for coaching, that goes for operations,
Yeah.
that goes for anything that you would work with someone or hire someone for. Do your due diligence before you decide to work with them, because everything worked out fine with that situation, but depending on who you're hiring, it may not work out that way.
Right. And also know their intention because that vet was very much a farm animal vet. Or I should, well, yeah, a farm
Farm
animal,
animal vet in,
not a
hold on,
farm pet vet.
right, right. So to distinguish that a little bit more for people who are curious, a farm vet is in the mindset of, I'm going to a farm where there's hundreds of head of goats, cattle, whatever it is, versus I'm going to a farm that has a handful of this animal.
Hmm.
There's a very different way in which you are treating those different groups of animals. Those that are going to the farms with hundreds or thousands of animals, things need to be quick, they need to be efficient, they need to be done, very matter of fact. There's not a lot of what I'll call bedside manner.
Good. And or patient and family center care.
There's very
There
little,
is
if
none
any.
of that.
No, no.
There was none of
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
No. And I would think that the other lesson has
Mhm.
come from our what we call our special needs, um,
Mhm.
special
Mhm.
babies. And so, we'll have a clutch of chicks and there'll be one that's wobbly. Or Rudy, for instance. Rudy came out a
He was
twin.
not special needs.
No, but his mother tried to take him out and didn't want to feed
Well,
him. And so
goat
what
life.
we took responsibility for him, which meant, feeding him what were we, 3 times a night, like
No,
all
every
through the
hour.
night. Every hour we were up. We thank God, teamwork. It definitely teaches you collaboration and teamwork. Um, and now, he's wonderful, 6 or 7, and now him and mom have reconciled, and he's forgotten that
She
mom.
tried to murder him as a baby, but that's okay.
It's okay.
That's farm life.
Now they share hay together, but
But here,
we
that's another perfect lesson. And you have to
forgiveness.
consider intentions.
Yes.
One of the most beautiful things about animals, and the reason that so many people say animals are far superior to humans, is because animals don't hold grudges the way that humans do.
Yes.
Animals live in the present moment. They're not focused on what you did back then, except in maybe severe trauma instances where, like, a dog doesn't like men because of some traumatic whatever. That's different. But for the most part, animals forgive and forget very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
They have pure intentions. We might not like the way it looks, but their intentions are pure. That mom was trying to kill the baby because animals have senses that we can't even comprehend.
Right.
Where she may have sensed that he was going to be the runt of the pack, which he is, a very tiny boy. And so in the wild, you wouldn't want to waste your resources on an animal that was likely going to be picked off. So that was a natural instinct of hers.
Yeah.
Luckily, there were humans that were able to intervene, but that's not something that we, hold against her.
No.
Or that he holds against his mom.
No, Jingle is wonderful, and she ended up.
Well, I don't know. Let's not go as far as wonderful. She is who she is, and we appreciate her.
She's a good mom
I,
to Holly. and I will say that watching Knucklehead as a dad,
Knucklehead was a better parent than Jingle was. I've said it.
Absolutely. He would play so delicately
He's
with
so
those
nice.
little boys and
Stella,
right,
and
and Felicity, and they just so delicately. I mean, they would rear up, they would go to smash horns, and I'm sitting there going, "Oh my gosh, somebody's about to get hurt and clobbered," and he just comes down so gently just to teach them.
And
And
if
it was
Knucklehead, that's not his vibe.
Yeah, that's
with anyone else.
That's not his vibe. And Stella, who is the littlest of all of the goats, she runs everybody.
No.
She has her yeah. She has everyone wrapped around her hoof.
No, just Knucklehead, but because Knucklehead is king of his castle, he keeps everybody else in line. But she is the little baby girl of the group, and she is the only one that Knucklehead will abandon a bowl of hay for. Yeah. Unless he's in a mood.
Well, yeah. Which can happen. It has kept us very real. It has grounded us. It has
broken our hearts. Time and time again.
Yeah, because nature happens, and it happens on its time, and it doesn't matter whether there's a meeting or not. If there's an animal
or not
that is hurt or going down, you're gonna be there, because that animal has been there for you. And we don't. I had written down, if a mango tree doesn't grow mangoes and produce fruit, we don't get pissed off at it and call it a failure. That was one of my other things I was going to say. Like, you don't judge. you don't. What are you laughing at? It is a very serious thing. You don't judge in nature the way that we judge each other.
I just can't fathom walking up to a tree and being like, "You're a failure. You didn't create fruit this year. Unbelievable."
I have told the chickens when they don't lay eggs that they are
Freeloaders.
freeloaders. And
Listen,
and
anyone who has animals know that as long as you say it in an upbeat tone, the animals think that you're telling them that you love them. It's fine. Sometimes you have to let a little steam off. There's no harm with it. Some of our favorite people on the internet, meaning all of everyone out there watching, sometimes you just gotta tell your chicken, back off when they're trying to peck at a scab on your leg because they think it's a bug.
what
Or
about
your
that
goat.
time when the rooster attacked you?
He didn't attack me. They were getting in a fight, and I put my foot in the middle of it. And chicken roosters specifically have these very hard, pointed. I don't know.
Spurs.
Yeah, I mean,
They're
yeah,
called
they're called
spurs.
spurs, but I'm trying to think of a comparable. Basically, we'll call it. I think everyone knows what a shank is. Like when you're in prison and
Yeah.
you create a shank. They basically have hard bone spurs coming out of their ankles, and one of them caught my ankle. Wow, my ankles have really taken a hit with our animals between
We
the
better look
sprain.
up at the metaphysical book on ankles.
I have. It makes sense, but
Yeah.
head on a swivel, people. The biggest lesson of all from farm life is head on a swivel. Pay attention, be aware, don't assume. Um,
Be
assume less,
adaptable. Be
be
adaptable.
adaptable.
Teamwork, collaboration, ask for help.
Do your research.
Do your research.
Please do your research.
Research.
Don't ever dehorn a goat.
Yeah,
Don't get me
don't do
started on
that.
that conversation. But if you're gonna get goats, don't dehorn them.
And if you're gonna get goats, you can't just get a goat.
No. And
That's
don't bring it to college parties or any party.
and don't have it drink liquor. But
No,
but
that is so
don't.
bad for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Goats. They may be tough and troublemakers and mischievous, but they are delicate little flowers. They are not. There's running jokes that goats can just eat anything. They
No,
cannot.
they cannot.
They're delicate little babies.
They can eat themselves. They literally
They can and they will.
eat themselves to death, or you have to take an ice pick and you have to basically.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! What did this show turn into? I am so sorry, everybody. Someone very unexpected decided to get very graphic. I'm not even going to let you finish that anyway. Keep on a swivel. Ask for help when you need it. Do your research. Be careful who you hire. And if you're going to get farm animals, reach out to us and we'll either talk you off the ledge or give you good advice.
And give you a tour.
No. And follow Tropical Country Acre on Instagram and Facebook if you want to see any of the shenanigans.
And
I'm having fun with it, so
there is a lot of shenanigans.
there's constant shenanigans, but that comes with it. It's about another huge lesson that farming teaches you is roll with it. Everything's about just rolling with it. Your hay goes bad, roll with it. You run out of goat mineral, you roll with it. You have a clutch of chickens that you didn't realize were being hatched, you roll with it.
Yeah.
It's like having kids. You just kind of got to figure it out as you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
hey, girl.
Note, huh?
I said, hey, girl.
You and this hate.
There's a meme that, like, hey, girl, like, hi. But then for us, the goats are like, hey, girl, because we are the hay girls and we bring them hay. So, all right. To me, it's funny. To me, it's funny. Hey, girl. It's just funny.
On that note, thank you all for joining us. If you have any farm questions, you want to let us know you're here, you have any thoughts, you want to share anything, please feel free to put it in the comments. Michelle, where can they find you?
They can find me at mokshagrace.com and everywhere on social media under Moksha Grace. Tomorrow is Moment of Presence with a very special guest, Stephen Smith. We are going to be talking about resilience, and I'm really looking forward to that conversation and having him back on the show. So please join us tomorrow at 12. And Krista, where can everyone find you for their operations COO needs so that they don't go insane and crazy because of networking issues.
Okay. You can find me at wickedwisdomconsulting.com. Not much more I need to say. Michelle just said it for me. Fractal COO, operations consultant. I work with a lot of small businesses, so if that's you and you need some help, reach out and we'll have a conversation about what is going on in your business.
Excellent.
And we will be here next week with another great topic. I believe, we're talking about That's So Fetch, which I know you're so excited about because you've been trying to make Fetch happen since Mean
Fetch
Girls
will
came out.
happen.
No, it won't. It's been 20 years since Mean Girls came out, and Fetch has not happened yet, but we'll explore that next week on the next episode of Shockingly Delightful.
So Fetch. Bye.
Okay. Bye, everybody.